Good evening.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing good. How are you today?
I am good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm wonderful. And I thank the Lord for this day. It's been a rainy um,
Oh,
weekend over here
really?
in Mississippi. Yes. And, some people are seasonal
Yeah.
people where, during certain seasons you feel a certain type of way.
Hmm.
And usually when it's raining, I get one of the moments where it's just like you just want to do nothing but just lounge.
That's
Like,
what rain and that,
oh my God, you just want
dreary, so to speak, weather does to you. It
to,
just
it
makes you just
is.
want to
It
lay
is.
out and can I not do anything today?
Yeah, I'm not do anything. You just, and,
Yes.
and Jeffrey was getting on me. He was like, every time I come in his living room, you just lounging, just laying there. Just relax.
Tell Jeffrey let you lounge.
Yeah. And I said, well, I tried to do some work, but my body just wouldn't do it. It just wouldn't. I was like, the computer sitting right there looking at me, and I'm just not doing anything. But I just,
Oh
I just,
gosh.
I just let myself have it. I said, okay.
Yeah.
I
And
said, Lord, maybe
sometimes
I
our
just need
body,
to rest. Mm-hmm.
right. Sometimes our body is speaking to us and
Yeah, and you
I've
just,
learned to just, if it's telling you to lay down or even just sit still for a moment, just follow suit because it's trying to tell you something. It's trying to we're trying to regroup. It's trying to, regain itself, and that's what the body needs to do.
exactly.
It got to,
And you
get
know
the
what?
blood going again.
And you might as well just let the body rest because
Right,
if you
right.
don't, it'll shut down on its own. So I was like, Lord, but just have your way. Hmm.
Ah, and here you are with the rainy weather, and we still getting blue skies and sunny skies over here in Arizona.
And probably so pretty and sunny over there too.
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
Not as hot, thank God, but yes, still
I know you're
sunny.
glad about that.
Oh, Father.
So, good evening, everybody that's out there in the audience. Me and Felicia, we always talk to each other in the beginning, to give people time to hop on. So, good evening, everyone. Show us some love with those hearts and share this live, please, because we have an awesome guest on this evening. Yes, we do. So show us some love with those hearts and share this live, please. And also put it in the comments, hashtag love doesn't hurt. Hashtag love doesn't hurt. Love does not hurt, y'all. First Corinthians 13 tells us something totally different about what love is, and hurt is nowhere near that. I'm just saying, it ain't nowhere in there about hurting people with your mouth, with your hands, with your action. Because God is love, and love is God.
That's right.
And so we as people of God, we have to show love to other people. Because if you say you love God, then you also love his people. That even includes your enemies. But at the same time, we human. We'll do some things. We'll say some things. Especially unintentionally. You
Hmm.
know, but people who are like I love to say that people who have issues in their life, they they don't know how to love because they have some things going on in their own lives that they tend to take out on other
Right.
people what's really going on with them. And
That's
so
so
when
true.
you are connected to people like that, you do have to make up in your mind whether or not you're going to love them from a distance because we even have family members like that where they're hurt and they're hurting other people. And we do have to pray for them and pray that the Lord will heal them and pray that they will also make up in their mind to get the help that they need. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be the one to fix it. Cause see, that's what a lot of us do. We feel like we have to go fix it, I know I can go do this. I could just nurture this guy, turn this guy into that, turn that girl into this. But really, you cannot do it. You cannot do it. I mean, we all have a free will, don't we, Felicia? And if God given us a free will, then what makes you think that we as people of God can just change anybody? We can't.
That is so true. That's
We
so true.
can't.
I'm thinking about when you say that, I think about that. It's a movie. I forgot the name of it, but it was LL Cool J and Vivica Fox character, and she was just like the nurturing, loving, fix it all type, and that was her thing. She just fixed everything, and I
Mhm.
love when he told her, you know, when things just kind of hit a high, he was like,
Yeah.
just let it be broken, just let it be broken. And I'm a firm believer in that. Sometimes you got to let some things and some people be
Amen.
broken and let it be fixed in the time and the manner that it's going to be. And you just know that you're not always the one, as you stated, that's going to do the fixing. That is not your requirement to fix everyone, you
Yeah.
know. And so I think a lot of people need to realize that, you know, some things we make and repair, but really in the end, that's not our calling.
Amen. So let's introduce our guest, Miss Dr. Veronica Outlaw. She is a survivor of and advocate for domestic abuse, and she is an educator, author, transformation coach, and travel entrepreneur. She educates and empowers at-risk women to develop unapologetic, independent worth and forgiveness in order to live an abundant life through her books, workshop, training, coaching, and also travel experiences. And she does have a home-based business, Outlaw Luxury Travel. So let's bring on Miss Dr. Veronica Outlaw. Y'all say hello to Miss Dr. Veronica Outlaw. You know,
Hello.
Hi,
I love to
everybody.
call people doctor, especially when they've been to school all these years and got their doctorate. Baby, we gotta make sure that we put that doctor in front of their name because they earned it. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? They earned it. So, Miss Outlaw, we're so glad to have you on here this evening so you can share about your life, share about your books and your story because there are a lot of people in this world that are familiar with and also maybe experiencing domestic violence. So it is Domestic Violence Month, and we have an awesome guest that's going to share her story, y'all. So Miss Veronica, why don't you tell us a little bit about your book because she is an author, y'all, so she's going to tell us a little bit about her book that she has written and how it came about.
Well, thank you, Miss Tyra and Miss Felicia, for having me. It's such an honor to share this platform with you all. I'm humbled at this experience and I'm really grateful for the opportunity. I guess I'm going to start off with when the abuse happened. I was in my um, early 20s when I met the guy that I married. We were together for a couple of years or so before we actually got married. But leading up to that is the main point that I want to share. Our relationship started off with all the bells and whistles. I was young and naive, very impressionable, and he was my first exposure. And I was not aware of the signs of domestic abuse until years later. For me, the abuse didn't start off physical, it was those subtle things that we don't pay attention to, those red flags. And just to give an example, anytime I wanted to go out, spend some time with family or friends, he would always come up with this surprise trip or this surprise outing or weekend getaway or something like that, and not knowing until my I didn't even know I had a couple of very close friends who had moved away. I didn't even know they had moved away. That's how isolated I was from everybody else. And so had I known those signs, I may not have married him. But after the marriage, about 6 months into the marriage, there was an altercation with him spending all of the money in the bank at a casino. I found out about us having somewhere around the $15 range after losing over thousands of dollars at the casino in one night. And when I found that out, I was writing bills this weekend, wrote out my last check, and I needed one more check to pay my car note. So I went to the bank to get a money order to pay it. And that's when I found out there was not even money in there to cover the car note. I opened up my own account. My next check did not go into that account. And when he realized that the following week, that's when the physical altercation started. He demanded that I close the account, put the money together. When I refused, that's when the physical altercation happened. He came home sloppy drunk that night. And when I was able to get away, I literally left the house with no shoes on, because this was over in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Had my oversized T-shirt that I would sleep in. It was bloody. The neckline was torn. Um, Left the house, no shoes. Had my keys, but I couldn't back the car out of the driveway because his car was behind mine. So I literally left on foot going to the police station. When I got to the police station, at this point, I didn't really know my condition because that's how fast I left the house. But apparently, my eye was black, lip was busted and bloody, um, scratches. And I'll never forget it, when I came through the door of the police station, the two policemen that were standing behind the counter looked at me like I was a ghost. Um, and so they took some reports and everything, get me back to the house so that I can collect some things to leave. And I left. The next day, I was at a lawyer's office, black eye, bloody, everything, filing for divorce. And in Chicago at that time, it took 60 days to have a divorce final. So by the time 8 months, 8.5 or so months hit, I was divorced. And so that kind of led me to where I am now. Um, Back then, like I said, I was in my early 20s. I'm almost 50 now. I did not know that there was hope or help for abuse victims. It had never happened to me before. I didn't know how to reach out. I could have reached out to family, but because of shame, I did not. And so I carried this burden for over 20 years before I, finally got some help, got some healing, found Christ, and and that was just recently, six or so years ago, in my mid 40s. So I say all that to say, no matter when it happens to you, it's never too late. Your current circumstance is not your destiny. You have a choice. You have a voice, and you are in power. You are in control of the transformations that you make in your life, no matter whether they are physical, in relationships, spiritual, financial, whatever that is, whatever you desire. We have resources and access to make that happen.
Mhm. And Veronica, what when you had got how long were y'all together before you decided to marry him?
We were together. I want to say it was almost 2 years, if not 2 years. Um, we had both taken off work this particular day. By this time, I think he could feel that I was distant. Um, and out of the blue, like he would always do, surprise me with some trip to bring us back together. And we did. We took off work. We went on this trip, or actually went to the zoo. And just out of the blue, he says, you know, I love you. You want to get married?" And that that was the proposal. And although I'm happy and sad about it at the same time, it's kind of undescribable at how rushed the decision was, how and even when I think about it today, I really can't say that I wasn't smart enough because had I paid attention to those red flags, had I paid attention to, and I don't want to say pay attention because I paid attention enough to know that it didn't feel good, but at the same
Mhm.
token, he had this way of
He had
turning
a
it
way of,
around.
yes,
Yeah.
he had a
And so,
way of speaking to you.
right,
Plus he already knew you.
right,
He knew what buttons to push. He knew what to say because men study women like that.
right,
So he already knew.
right,
And just like you said, every time you getting ready to go somewhere, every time he may feel like you're getting a little distant, he's doing some type of surprise to show
right,
his love. You know,
right,
but
Hmm.
it's really not love. It's all about
Yeah.
control.
right.
That's all
Control,
it is.
control was number one.
Right. And Dr. Veronica, can you expound on that a little bit more as it relates to, as we call the red flags? Because you mentioned he would, do the isolation from family and friends, always come up with a trip. What other things did he do? I'm sure, like you said, it was very subtle. To, like you said, you knew enough to know it didn't
Right.
feel right, but it was still those red flags that were kind of there that you missed. Can you expound on that some more?
Yes, the drinking for number one. He would just get out of control with the drinking. He'll come home and take it out on me. And then, of course, when he's sober, he's got this grand apology, and I accept that. Um, there were times when he has two small children at the time, and there were times where, like you said, the control, he would do and say stuff in front of his small children. And if I remember correctly, they were not even, it was two small girls, maybe 4 and 3 or 2 and 3, I can't remember. But he would do stuff and say stuff in front of them that would belittle me. Um,
Mhm.
or if I wanted to go somewhere, he had to go. There was nowhere I could go by myself, even to the
Mhm.
grocery store. Um, he wanted to make it seem like he was being helpful around the house when it was actually, again, hindsight, paying attention to my moves and my actions and my thoughts. And I won't 100% put that on him because, again, I saw the signs, I accepted the actions, I accepted the way he talked to me. So I won't put it 100% on him, but again, had I known better, or even not knowing better, just leaving when I felt like that wasn't love. Um,
Mhm.
there there was no middle ground with him. It was either always hot or always cold. Um, and I learned to deal with it. And like you said in your opening, Miss Tara, about our being nurturing, I'm very nurturing, and I think he played that to the 10th power. The more I
Mhm.
felt like he was displeased with something that was said or done, the more I tried to make it better. And in hindsight, had I had the self-worth, which I didn't have, I've for a long time had low self-esteem. My confidence was not where it should be. I was a people pleaser, but again, even outside of all of that, that gives no person any right to put their hands on you,
So
or
true.
even if it's not the hands, even if it hasn't gotten physical yet. um, the way we treat other people with our words and with our actions,
Mhm.
all of that is about the respect that is given and received. And if a
Amen.
person doesn't give that to me, even if I'm giving that to them, then it's time for me to make the decision to part ways, because I
Right.
know now that I am in control of what enters my space. And if
Mhm.
it doesn't bring me peace, if it doesn't uplift me, it has to go.
Amen. Amen.
Mhm. I wanted to ask you,
Mhm.
Dr. Veronica, what do you think gave you the strength and courage to leave? I ask that because in many cases, women try and they're not successful,
Hmm.
or they just continue to stay there and take it for whatever the reason may be. Even though the self esteem wasn't there, even though there was a lot of things you allowed to happen, what gave you the strength that night to walk away in the condition that you was, barefooted, bloody, clothes ripping, and go to the police station. But not only do that, you went
Mhm.
forward even with the divorce. Many
Mhm.
turn back around even in that condition, or the police, whatever happens, maybe they end up getting back together. What gave you the strength and courage to take all of those steps to the final end, which was an actual divorce?
Miss Felicia, the night that it happened out the blue. And prior to that, he always kept a gun. I never held
Mm,
a gun, didn't know how to shoot a gun, but I knew him to always keep it in the nightstand. When he was on top of me, there was a split second when his hand came across my face and I bit down on his thumb. Enough, I guess it pained him enough to kind of jerk back. And for that quick moment, I was able to kick him off. I ran towards the nightstand to get the gun. Now, mind you, I didn't know how to shoot it or anything, and the gun wasn't in the nightstand. In that split second, I realized that I could have killed him or either inadvertently killed myself. But in his
mm,
effort to run towards me after he got up, it was only the grace of God that he got sick and because he was drunk, vomited. He was vomiting as he was coming towards me and fell and hit the wall. And at that moment, I ran across his body. I turned for a split second to get my purse. I couldn't find it real quick. The keys were on the kitchen counter next to the door. So I just ran for the keys to go out the door. And that's when I knew or saw his car parked behind mine. So I couldn't get out. Now, I was only about, I think it was a block or two from the police station. So, close enough to
Mhm.
walk, but still it's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And for me, it was that split second in knowing whether or not I could have died or he could have been
Mhm.
killed that changed my mind. Now, the reason why it was so easy for me to leave the next day was for number one, there was no way, nothing nobody could have said to me that could have made me go back to this guy. There was nothing.
mm,
I didn't want to
Mhm.
hear it. He even got a pastor involved. I didn't want to hear it. There was nothing nobody could say to make me go back. But the other thing was I was independent before him. Before meeting him, I had
mm,
graduated high
Yeah.
school, had my job. I think I had two jobs at one point, and then when I got the job where we both worked together, I was doing that full time, making more money than I have ever made in my life, even to this day, at a manufacturing automotive manufacturing company. And so I had my own apartment. I was paying my own bills. I wasn't independent on anyone. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of times that's what happened to some abusers is that the person abusing them is their main source of support.
Income.
that's
Mhm.
true.
And I have talked to women who have said, they don't even know how to keep a check in a checkbook. They don't have a
Mm,
checking account. They didn't let them have all these things, so therefore they don't they don't know what to do or where to go. In my case, I was independent before him. It was a struggle to start back up, but I did. So my independence did not rely on him, and that's I think was another factor and another reason why I'm such a support for domestic abuse because even though my self-esteem was not there, my independence was there. And I
mm,
think if you have that, that alone can help you get started over. And you need the support of your family and friends to help you start over,
Mhm.
um, because we need that accountability. I don't think now that I'm saying this out loud, I think over a period of time, the love for him started to diminish. So it wasn't that I was in this space like, oh my God, you can't leave. I love you. I love you. I wasn't in that space. It had dwindled down over a period of time. And if be
Mhm.
honest, I should not have married him when, he brought that to the table because I literally was out the door when he said that anyway. But I think I was
mm,
more so, um, I guess I was more so in the moment of being married that I didn't consider that this is not the person I should have married.
mm.
Mhm.
That's good.
I have a question, Veronica. But that's the first time he hit you the night you
Yes.
had left. Okay,
Yes. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. First time.
Because you know, a lot of women do not think that they could leave the first time, and then
Exactly.
very seldom I hear stories from ladies that say they left the first time.
First time, yeah.
You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? So it was just amazing that I heard that from you
Yeah.
because it is a possibility that you
Right.
can
Yeah.
leave that first time
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
don't go back. Because
Right.
some women they do go back. Some men do go back, and you know, and that alone showed me strength that
Mm-hmm.
you know, okay, I have to go. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? Because a lot of women who have not even been in that situation, especially myself, I can, you know, I have always said to myself, all it takes is one time for a man to hit
Hmm.
me. I'm already gone.
Hmm.
Because if I stay there after one time, then he's gonna think in the back of his mind, and I don't even want to give him the inch to even think that it's okay to hit me again. Because that's all
Right.
I can think about is that you're gonna sit here and think that it's okay to hit me because I'm sitting up here in your face after you
Right.
done hit me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm just like
Right.
I can't never get that out of my head. But
Yeah.
but
And,
even if a man does not hit you, even if a woman does not hit you, they still can abuse you in other ways. They still
right.
can say things to you that belittle you. They can say things to hurt your feelings, you know,
Right.
and try to isolate you and make you feel like you ain't worth anything. So there's still abuse in that
Right.
area. And
Right.
as women, you know, the way God made us, especially when I think about Eve, y'all know how I love talking about the Bible, especially when I think about Eve and Adam, how Eve was able to just hand over the fruit to Adam. And to me, to me, I'm just saying this is my opinion. She was an empowered woman, but when God had put down the punishment to the serpent, Adam and Eve, y'all remember when God told her that your husband is going to have rule over you. So ever since then, men have been ruling over women, and it's like we just lose our power as the
Mm.
days went by from that point on because all you hear is about how the way we were being treated in the Bible, you know, through the rape, through the hush your mouth, no talking, women don't have authority and all that sort of. I
Right.
mean, I'm just saying from the Old Testament all the way down to the New Testament, but there are some women in the Bible who are powerful, who are empowered
Mm-hmm.
women now. Don't think that they're not because they are in there. You know, when you think about Naomi and Ruth and Deborah and Esther, you know, we have some awesome ladies in the
Right.
Bible. And so we can look at them as, okay, God had brought you through all of that. Surely he can bring me through all of this. And even though the world is shaped in a man's standpoint, we are still rising. You see what I'm saying? Women are still rising above all these occasions that's going on. And I thank the Lord for that. But as I wanted to bring up Amanda Point because I was about to say it when she said that as a parent of two girls, it impressed it on her to teach her girls and also help them see their worth. Because we as women, we have to show that we are powerful ladies, that we have a lot going for ourselves. We have a wonderful mind. We're nurturers. Even though we are nurturers, we ain't supposed to be nurturing a grown man. You know, I'm just saying, you ain't probably really not supposed to be nurturing grown men. Nah, the Bible says you're supposed to be a helpmate. It's a helpmate, not no nurturer, not no mama to your husband. Not, I'm just saying, it's a nurturer. It's a helpmate. I mean, helping, not taking care of him. You know, but in that aspect, when we have girls in our families, we have
Yeah.
boys. We have to show the boys on how they're supposed to treat everybody, not just girls, but also how to treat himself as well as everybody else in females, and
Right.
as well as girls, how to treat how to treat boys and also how to treat yourself, because there are some girls who are also mean to boys. There are some
Mm-hmm.
women who are mean to men, even though
Mm-hmm.
men don't want to share those type of stories. But women can be just as vindictive as a man can. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. And
But we
I'm
just.
glad you brought that up because there's a fine line in talking about bringing up powerful young ladies who are independent, self-sufficient,
Hmm.
and also teaching them not to demean their men.
Exactly.
I didn't learn until I was in
Hmm.
my 40s that submission is not a bad thing.
Same here.
Submission, yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
learn until I was in
submission,
my 40s. I hated that
exactly,
word coming up in my
exactly.
20s and 30s. I thought that was the most evil word.
Right.
I'm not submitting to nothing.
Right, right. But until
Hmm.
you learn what it means, it takes on a different meaning.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
if you're, and I'm not saying, telling women to submit to every man that they encounter,
That's right.
because I don't think that's
Amen.
biblical. If you're going to marry this person, it should be done in the proper way. There should be premarital counseling. There should be time that you get to know each other and do, all those things. And if you're loving and trusting enough of this person to be the ruler of the household, then you have to submit to that husband. And
Hmm.
submitting to that husband means that he has proven that he has submitted himself to God first. You're not
Amen.
just submitting to
Amen.
any old body. You're submitting to a person that you trust and love enough to take care of you, even if taking care of you means telling you no. Sometimes
Ooh,
we
say
have to
that
be told
again.
no.
Yeah.
We have to be told no sometimes because what we want is what we want,
Hmm.
and
Mhm.
sometimes that as the leader of the home, if he says, okay, we don't have enough money to do this, or maybe it's not the time, or whatever the
Mhm.
answer is, if he says no, then you don't pick your mouth up off the ground, kiss him and tell him you love him and go on about your day. I bring light to that because it is a sticky situation. If you say submission to some women, oh, that you're going to get your throat cut.
You're
But once
right.
you learn what that means,
Amen.
it's a game changer. But
Yeah.
That's
it's
true.
not one sided because men also have to submit to their women as well. Um,
Amen.
but I knew for me, even though I was going to church back then, but I didn't have the relationship with God. My relationship has really just started over the past since 2014 when I moved to South Carolina. So I wasn't in church then. So, but I knew enough to know that I couldn't submit to this guy. I couldn't
Mm,
trust him. So there was no reason to go back. Every time I looked at him, I saw hatred. I
mm,
didn't see love, so maybe that's why it was easier for me to leave. But regardless of the fact, I left. I never thought about going back. He pulled every ploy out of the book to try to get me to come back. He even went to the pastor of the church that he
Mhm.
never went to have him.
the
Yes,
audacity.
I was going to church with his parents, and he had a three-way call because I never was agreed to a meeting in person. Had a three-way call. The pastor called me with him on the other line, and he said, Veronica, I've got so and so on the line. He's told me that you now, mind you, he's told the pastor that I left, I abandoned the home. He didn't tell him the whole picture, and I didn't know that until the conversation kept going. And he
Mm.
basically just said, I want to have counseling with you all. This can be worked out. He said a few other things, and I said, the mere fact that you said that tells me that he didn't tell you he beat me last or a few nights before, and the phone got silent, and that's when I knew he
Mhm.
didn't have the whole truth. And
Mhm.
I let the pastor talk. I didn't interrupt him. I let him say what he had to say. And at the end of all of that, I said, Pastor, I respect totally what you're saying, but there's nothing you can say to get me to go back to this guy. I said he didn't love me enough to restrain himself. I said he left me at home with two small kids with $15 in the bank when there was a few thousand in there the night before. There's nothing you can say to me right now for me to continue on the path with this guy. And, a few more words were said, and he basically told him, he said, I think this is a done deal. He was talking to him, and he said, I'm going to let her go because that's that. And you and I will keep talking. And that was the last time I talked to the pastor about that. I didn't want to hear anything about getting back with this guy. All I wanted was my divorce. And when we got to the court that day, and I write about this in the book, and I'll go ahead and tell it. We're kind of about midway of this long line, people getting divorced, and as people were walking up to the judge's desk, he would ask a series of questions, I guess just out of formality to make sure you want to get divorced. People say yes, and he'll say okay. He stamps it temporarily. He says your attorney will be given copies of the papers. You're good to go. We get up to the counter, and I'm noticing nobody is leaving with their paperwork. It's going to be a few days, a few weeks later. So in my heart, I'm sweating on the inside because I need to leave there with my paperwork. The only thing I wanted was my maiden name back and for my name to be off of the mortgage. That's all I wanted. He could keep the house. We were in a house. He can keep everything. And we get to the counter. The man does all of that. We get ready to leave. The lawyer grabs me by the arm and tells me we can go out. He'll talk to me outside. And I said, I've got to leave here with my papers. He said, we've got to go. I'll talk to you about this outside. I literally turned around and I said, Your Honor, I beg your pardon or something like that, I said. And I tell him the story. I said, I've been displaced from my home. I said, all I want is my last name back and my name off of the mortgage. He can have everything else. I want to leave this courtroom today with my papers so that I can start my life over. And literally, you could hear a mouse run across cotton in that courtroom. And he stood there and looked at me, and it was dead silence for what felt like 5 minutes. But that man signed those papers and gave it to the clerk, and they processed my papers, and I left there that day with my papers.
Wow.
Look at that.
And
Wow.
so I was able to take those papers because leading up to that, I had been in touch with the mortgage company, telling them what happened. And everybody that I talked to for weeks at a time told me my name was on the paperwork. There was no way to get off unless how did it go? I had to sell the house or whatever it was to get off the deed. And finally, one day I got in touch with a lady, told her the story, and she said, listen, I can't do anything right now without losing my job. She said, but the day that you get those papers and can fax them to me, I'll process it and take your name off the deed. And that's what happened. And so she probably did that under the table, but I left there without that house even being on my credit anymore.
Wow.
So I just attribute all of that to God because he had to be looking out for me when I didn't even know to look out for myself.
Yes, Lord.
So I just say to any woman who's in a bad relationship to this is domestic abuse, domestic violence month. And not that it's just in October, but every month for me is domestic abuse awareness because every day some woman is in a situation that she should not be in. She knows she shouldn't be in it, but she doesn't know how to get out. And how do we keep getting the word out to let women and or men know that love doesn't hurt? It doesn't hurt.
Yes.
The love of God does not hurt. If it doesn't feel like God, then it's probably not the relationship you should be in.
Amen. Let me put up Tasha comment for a moment. It's like people can tell you all day to leave, but you can't until you get to that breaking point and realize your life is worth so much more. Sounds crazy, but I stayed until I just couldn't handle it anymore. Because everybody has a breaking point. Everybody.
That's true.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? So you know, a woman, even though we are created this way to handle a lot of things, especially when God say He will put no more on us than we can bear. But that still doesn't give someone the right to do whatever they want to do to us. But
Right.
even though we can handle a lot of things through the grace of God,
Mm.
we still have a breaking point. We still
Right.
have one. We all have a breaking point. And
Mm-hmm.
whether a woman is being mean to a man, that man has a breaking point. He can just easily say, you know, I can't take it no more, and just leave. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's the same with females. We can leave, but
Mm-hmm.
we. This is the thing. I want us women to understand that you can leave on day one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Day one, while you dating somebody, you see something going on that you know is not comfortable. It's okay to say, you know what, you can lose my number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can nicely tell somebody that you're not interested anymore. You know, this is not gonna work. Or you know, or block the number if you don't even want to tell the person that you don't want to talk to them anymore. But you know, there are some people that will try to hunt you down and stalk you and all
It's
that stuff.
true.
You can go to the police and get a restraining order right then and there. We don't wait. Don't put some time on it. Instead of there and say, well, hold on, maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe my standards are too high. Your standards ain't too high. If you see a
Yeah.
red flag, baby, that means go. That means run.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
Yeah. And Tyra, you
Yeah.
said something, you was like, or, the guy might stalk you down or woman. And you're right. That
Right.
can happen. And I've heard of
It
that.
can happen.
And that's why I think it's imperative too when we are in that dating phase is we got to be careful. I'm not the one that's too much into come pick me up in my house. No, I don't know you. You don't get to come to my house. You don't get to even know what my address is. I remember I went on a date. Guy was great, very mannerable. I mean, just a total gentleman. But I remember when he was planning our date, he did ask. He was like, "Well, do you want me to come pick you up? We ride together, or?" And when he said "or," I was like, "No, we'll meet at the place." And I know that I could tell it kind of made him like, "Oh, nothing towards you, but I don't know you."
Mm-hmm.
And because I don't know you, you will not have my address.
Mm-hmm.
The best you will know is what my car looked like.
I mean,
And
and
I
you
think
know
it's
what?
okay
We
to have
have
those
a
conversations.
Yeah,
yeah, and you know what? We have instinct. The
right.
Bible, I mean, the way God has created us, we do have instincts, and especially female. It's so heightened. Our instinct is very heightened
Yeah,
more so than a man. So if something is just not feeling right, looking right, hearing right, seeing right, boo, it's okay to just say, you know what, I need to take a step back.
right.
Let me go try the spirit by the spirit. That's what the scripture means. It means take a step back and reflect and look at it from not your eyesight, but the spiritual eyes, because there's sometimes we get so caught up in what's in front of us or get so caught up in what's in our heart because we do have a desire to be with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Come on now, God created us to love people. So, and especially our own love, we want to be loved too. So, when you have those desires in you, they can get to the point where that's the only thing that you've seen. Like, that's the only
Yeah,
thing you're thinking about. Oh, I gotta be with somebody. I have to be married at this certain age. You know, I'm supposed to have kids at this. I'm supposed to be, you know what? I'm supposed to be, no, you're supposed to be where God says you're supposed to be.
yeah.
Whenever that
That's
time
true.
comes, because
That's when
everything
it's
is in
supposed to
God's
be.
Yeah.
time. So
You got to be
whenever,
careful with that because
ooh,
if you're in that space, now you're probably making decisions out of desperation.
Yes,
And
yes.
you're not thinking clearly. You're willing to accept any
you're
man that
not.
says I love you or I want to
Right.
marry you when his intentions are nowhere near either one.
Yeah, you look,
Yeah,
you sitting there like, ooh, with a clock on the wall. I'm almost 40. I haven't had kids yet, or
thank
I'm almost
you.
40 or in my 40s. I haven't married yet. And, I know I tell my family and friends now being 43, still unmarried. And I'm like, man, I hit those points of where it's like, man, I wish I had somebody getting older. I saw my mother and father, they were married to death did part. My father died. So I want that. But I said, I'm too old to get stupid. I was stupid in my 20s. I was stupid in my 30s, a little bit, But I'm like, I'm too old for that now. So I don't have the time as much as I desire marriage. I'm like, I got to take a step back. I can't be going into
Mhm.
this thing blinded, all with the little
Yeah.
flutters and butterflies in the heart in it.
Oh
That was
yeah.
cute at
Love,
20.
love.
That was cute at 20. You all infatuated. And yes, that still happens
Yes.
to us at any age. We're women. That's just how we're designed. That's our DNA. But I'm like, I'm too
Mm,
old to be stupid now. This just
mm.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tasha says, step back and run.
Bro,
Don't look back. Look,
you are so right.
don't be like Lot's wife, baby, turning into a
Don't look.
pillar
You
of
see what
salt.
happened
Don't
when she
even look
looked
back.
back?
Don't even
It
look
Yeah.
was
back.
over.
It is
And you
over.
know what? Something Tasha said, and she's so right that whether it's a man or woman, they won't leave until they reach their breaking point. And even
Mm-hmm.
though we can sit here and share and preach and do all of that, she's absolutely right. Until that person
Exactly.
reaches their breaking point for them, even if they
Exactly.
left, they're likely to go back, and at some
Right.
point,
Mm-hmm.
they'll leave for good. But for me, it was the mere fact that I was willing to pick up a gun and shoot it without thinking of the consequences. That was
Woo.
my breaking point,
Yes.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I could not have been here today. What if he had gotten to me fast enough and taken the gun and shot me? But,
Mm-hmm.
True.
thanks be to God, we found out later the gun was in the trunk of the car. He had taken it
Oh,
with him to the casino, so it wasn't even in the house. And,
Look at
but
God.
it's, I don't, I think about this all the time and wonder where do we begin? How do we begin? What conversations do we start to have? How young?
mm,
What causes
Mm-hmm.
a person to not have the self-esteem and the confidence and the value? Can Is there some point where we can catch that? And it's and I know it's not, we're not going to fix the world, but those are those type thoughts that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Had I had that information going into this, where would my life be today?
yeah,
Or was I destined to go through this to be able to be a spokesperson for
that's
domestic
true.
abuse? Who knows? I
Mm-hmm.
don't question. I used to question, why me? Why me? And somebody told me one day, why not you? And I'm
Yeah.
Yeah.
thinking, well, why
Okay.
not me?
Yeah.
If God thinks I'm special enough to do whatever, then I accept that,
Yeah.
and I'm
And you
gonna
know,
do it.
Veronica, I just think that we all, because we all do have a free will, we all make
Mhm.
our own decisions. And
Mhm.
based upon your decision, that's how your life gonna be. But
Right.
thank God that he already knew at the time that you were born that in your 20s you were going to have this situation because that was a decision that you made on your
Mhm.
own.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, but the thing about it, he also knew that you were going to run. He also knew
Mhm.
that you were going to take off that day. He also knew that that gun
Right.
was not going to be in that drawer. He knew that
Mhm.
it was in the car. He already knew that. So
Right.
it's like we make decisions as we go through our lives,
That's true.
but at the same time, with God hands on us, everything is for Him, in Him and with Him. But
Mhm.
it's just that when people say these type of conversations, if I had have done this or if it's okay.
Yeah.
We all make decisions that are not good for us. But
Mhm.
even in that, like the Bible says, Romans 8:28, all things work together. So it but even in that you now have went through it, now you can walk freely, you can
Right.
talk to people, you can be an advocate to ladies, especially ladies that are in the situation. And then when they see you, they hear you, they be like, oh my God, if you can do it, then what's going to happen is you're going to liberate them. You're going to make them feel like I can do this too.
Right.
So it's a good thing. Everything is for the
Right.
Lord.
Right.
And,
And
you
I
Can I,
believe
know,
can
that
I
every decision we make, God's hands is always on our
it's
lives. I
already
Yeah.
do
on.
believe that God allows us, like it's free will. And I do believe warning comes before destruction. God sends warning, sends
And
the
we
hey,
still
hey,
make a
hey, hey,
decision.
hey, and we choose to go in a different direction. And I believe that's when God says, okay, do you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
how I look at God. Where you're like, okay, do you, boo? You go ahead and make that decision. But I do also believe, because of who he is to us and for us, his hand is
Yeah.
still there. And so he's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
guiding. He is still covering, because like Tyra said, that could have been a different situation. That gun
Mhm.
could have been in that nightstand, and we don't know how that could have went. So I still
Right.
believe God is still orchestrating, even
God
though
is
he may have taken a
awesome.
step back, like,
He
I'm gonna let you
already
do
knew.
you. But
Mm-hmm.
you still my child, so my hand is still on your life. I got a
Yeah.
plan for you.
Yes.
And
He
if I
already knew.
can I tell a quick story?
Okay, hold on.
Um,
Let me put Tasha comment out here. I'll be trying to
okay.
make sure I catch these up.
Okay.
She said, right, I went back and realized nothing had changed. I
Mm,
couldn't put my girls through that again. She
yeah.
was responding to a comment that we had said.
Yeah.
She also said, exactly, Veronica, why not you?
I hear you, Tasha.
We gotta stop asking that why me question.
Yeah,
Is
because
why
that's what
not
it
Right.
come
you?
back to.
Because you
Right.
because you
Right.
went through it, you survived it. You know what I'm saying? There are some women who have not survived it,
Right.
and but you did survive it. So why not you? Just
Right.
just go ahead and just do
Yeah.
everything in the glory of God.
Right.
And then
Allow
she
me to tell
said,
this quick story. Because we just
"Oh,
choose to
okay." She was talking about sometimes we choose just
Yeah.
to turn a blind eye. All
Yeah.
right, go ahead,
Yeah.
tell your story.
Quick story. In 2014, I moved to South Carolina. Now, by this point, 20 plus years had passed since the abuse, and I had been in, um, uh, got pregnant, had my daughter. So now I'm a single parent. I was abandoned in that relationship. Got married and divorced again. Had a couple of miscarriages. Financial ruin behind that.
Mm.
So 20 plus years passed. I moved to South Carolina in 2014. Haphazard, I step into this church, and I dedicate my book and my whole being here today to this lady I'm about to tell you about. My pastor and first lady, I when I got to that church, they were the first ones I literally told everything to. I was in a very broken state when I got to South Carolina. They talked to me, tried to counsel me. I wasn't hearing it. I was so angry and bitter, unforgiving, all of those things for over 20
Mhm.
something years. They finally tell me one day, listen, I want you to meet somebody. She was married to her abuser. She has forgiven, giving me a little backdrop. I want you to meet her. I agreed to the meeting. We go to her house, and lo and behold, she's in a mobilized bed. Well, to find out, her husband then had shot her several times in the upper body,
Mm.
left her a quadriplegic for over 30 years at this point of meeting her. Um, she lived that incident. So when they tell me, they told me that story, but I thought she was, up and walking around,
Mhm.
everything was fine because 30 years had passed. I didn't know until putting eyes on her that she had been in that state for about 30 years at this point.
Mm.
She
Wow.
tells me her story, and she's pregnant at the time, and the child lives as well. She tells me her story, and in that moment, it was all I could do to keep from rolling to the floor because I was convicted in that moment, seeing her in this condition, but I'm able bodied and walking around harboring all this bitter and angerness
Mm.
and
Yeah.
unforgiveness that I crippled my own self for over
Mhm.
20
Woo.
years by harboring these feelings. There's a
Mhm.
such thing as self sabotage,
Mhm.
everybody.
Yes,
Just
there is.
because
Amen.
people did something to you does not mean that you keep giving them the power over your life.
That is
And
so
I
true.
and after she said that to me, I shared my story with her. She uplifted me, and that from that day on, I made a decision to change. And so shortly after that, I asked to be baptized in the church. This was in 2014, I think, or 2015. And I had been baptized as a child, but I made a conscious decision to try to want to do things right, do things God's way.
Mhm.
And so that lady changed my life forever. It's only been about
Wow.
6 years, and she's passed on since then. Since she's passed on now, but she was the encounter that I needed to
Yes.
shake me out of that state that
Mm.
I was in.
Amen.
And I said to myself, how dare I live the way that I was living because I was just existing. And this lady was a true advocate for domestic abuse from her wheelchair, from her
Mm,
mobilized bed. She finished her I think it was psychology degree at the local college. It
Mhm.
took her almost 18 or so years to finish, but she finished. This
mm,
lady was the true epitome of no excuses. She had a
Right.
nonprofit. She was an advocate for abuse. She went around speaking, and I was just convicted. I was convicted. And
Mhm.
so I thank my pastor and first lady
wow.
for introducing me to her. I thank the people like Miss Erlene Frazier and many of the members at the church who embraced me as I was coming out of my shell, and for sharing her life with me. Because
Amen.
by this point, I had only had two brief encounters with her. And before I could come back and help her do some things she wanted me to help her do, she had passed away.
Mm,
So
Mhm.
I dedicate my
The
book,
book.
which is No Excuses. It starts with you.
mm,
And it does start with you. No matter what it is you want to
Amen.
do in
yeah.
life, there's resources, there's people, there's accountability. Whatever it is that your mind can even think that you want or that you can have, if you remove the excuses and put God first, you can have them.
Amen.
So
That's
I
so good.
dedicate that book to her. She's no longer here, but I made it a mission to um live my life in a way to thank her for sharing. And
Mm,
because she shared, I now share. And it took
Amen.
me over 20 years to just share
mm,
because of the shame. Sometimes I even still get a little butterflies for even sharing because of the fear of rejection, shame, or just the judgment. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I always think back to what if she had had those same feelings when she shared with
mm,
me? She probably wouldn't have shared, and then I wonder where would I be now because of that.
Yes.
mm.
So because of that, whatever little bit I can share and I can do, I'm happy to do that because who knows if it blesses a half a person, that's better
Amen.
than it was before the conversation.
Mm, that's so
Amen.
good. That is
Amen.
so good. That is so
Amen.
good. Dr.
That's okay.
Veronica,
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you a question because I know we're about to get ready to wrap things up. But I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to know what advice can you give family and friends of those family members that are in abusive relationships? What advice can you give? Because it's not much that we can do. That person has to have the breaking point, as you stated. But
Mm-hmm.
is there anything we can do? I mean, I know the obvious pray, that's the obvious.
Yeah.
Amen.
But what
Right.
can we do tangibly? What can we do as to what can we do? Because I know me, my first instinct, I'm ready to fight because I just
Yeah.
cannot stand that. I can't stand
Right.
when, mainly when a man is hitting on a woman, but I don't like
Mm-hmm.
domestic violence, period, on either side. But outside of those things, like what can we
Right.
do when you know this is happening within your family, your friend circle, outside of praying?
I think, and that's a hard one because you don't want to see these things happen to your loved ones.
Right.
But at the same token, we go back to that person's breaking point.
Yeah,
So what you do now, when you intervene, you now put yourself in danger, and that person is still with the abuser.
that's true.
So I think, outside of praying, I think just letting that person know that you're there for them.
Mm,
Um, be there willing to talk without judgment and without telling them what to do, because at the end of the day they have to own the decision they make, not the one that you make for them.
that's
If they
good.
make it for
Amen.
you, it's not going to stick and stay.
That's good.
So
Amen.
just be there for them, but also don't put yourself in harm's way. You can also feel free to set up those boundaries. Listen, I'm going to take you in, but when if let's say the person leaves the home and they need a place to
Hmm.
stay, the boundary is I'm going to take you in, but while you're here, you're not to let so and so into my home. or onto my
Mm-hmm.
property or something like that. Because at the end of the day, if that abuser has no care or concern for the wife or the person that they're beating, what concern are they going to
They
have for
have for
you?
you.
You're
That's
probably
Amen.
going
true.
to be the first one to
Amen.
go.
So true.
So I just say be
That's
there for
good.
them, advise the best you can. If there's a way to get somebody else involved without the person feeling like you've broke confidentiality or something like that, do that. Get them on calls like these. Expose them without letting them know you're exposing them for the true purpose, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But be there for them, love on them and embrace them. But most importantly, don't put yourself in harm's way, because at the end of the day, the
Mhm.
situation isn't about you.
That's good. That's
Amen.
good.
That's good advice. That's very good.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
And
Dr.
it's sad
Veronica.
that you can't do more, but that's where we are.
Yeah. And I know how some people feel like that's not enough. But
It
guess
doesn't
what?
feel like
That
enough.
is enough.
And it
But it
doesn't.
is enough. It is enough, though. It may feel like it's not, but it really is enough because you cannot fix everything. As
Right.
human beings, we just can't do it. We cannot even make
Right.
anyone do anything either. But the
Hmm.
last thing you want to do is push them away. Because
Right.
once you push them away, then you lose everything. You lose contact. You don't know what's going on, all of that. So you don't want to push them away. So the best thing to
Right.
do is to show support without judgment and without
Right.
bias and without giving advice,
Right.
because they really don't want your advice. They just want to vent. They just want
That's
to talk
true.
about what's going on with them. And
Yeah.
so when they come to you and start talking about those things, if you're not in that space to listen, it's okay to tell them, you know what, I'm not the person who you should be talking to about
Yeah.
this,
Mhm.
because I know how I am. I'm gonna be ready to tell you what to do. I'm gonna go ahead and call the police.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's okay to be honest. You gotta
Right.
have that honest communication, because if I'm not in that space, I'm like, honey, sometimes I don't even pick up the phone. I'll be looking at calls and just be screening. All right, so who's this call? If you already know what space that person is in, and you know you're not in a position to be
Right.
supportive, because we know when we're not in a position to be supportive, then just
Mhm.
let them know. Can we talk tomorrow? Or whatever the case may be. Because that's a hard pill to swallow when you got a loved one, especially if it's your own child.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If it's your
Yeah.
own baby, sure enough, I'm gonna be ready to go get my gun and it's over. But the thing is, we have to be led by the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because
Because
we
there's
can't put
consequences.
ourselves in harm's way. We can put ourselves in
Yeah.
harm's way. We can make a
Right.
situation worse than it is.
Yeah. There's consequences behind every decision we make,
Every
especially when
decision,
we make them out of emotions. And
yes.
the last thing I want to leave people with is the part about forgiveness, because that's what I struggled with so badly for so long. I'm hearing people say you have to forgive him, you have to forgive her, and all these people that did things to you, but there never once was a conversation about forgiving myself. And I
Mm-hmm.
think,
Hmm.
even though the transgressor did things to you, granted, but you forgive yourself too so that you can let it go. I had to forgive
Hmm.
myself for the decisions I made to be in a relationship where I saw the signs, maybe I didn't understand them, or all these other situations. I had to forgive myself, because even after that relationship and as I entered others, there were things I knew I should not have been doing or saying, and I did them anyway. And so I had to forgive myself for my words, my actions, my behaviors. I had to own it. I had to own my part of it. Because if you're in an abusive relationship, you're not in it by yourself. So half of that or part of that belongs to you as well as the
That's
transgressor.
true.
So
Hmm.
forgiveness is, once I
Yes.
totally and honestly forgave, I mean, I've been living a life of peace, and I'm happy, I'm
Yes.
joyful, and I my confidence is to the point where now I can clearly and honestly say that nothing will be invading my space that I don't let. And
Amen.
so, and when you say that, you own it, and
That's
people can't
true.
help but to respect that.
Amen. Amen.
That's good.
So before we wrap it up, Dr. Veronica, where can anyone get your book?
Well, right now, as of last week, as you can see, this gray bar across my face, that's not for resale. This was the author draft. So as of last week, I had given the edits to the publisher, and they're working on that now. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, we should
Okay.
see something from the book. And this book has been about almost 2.5 or so years in the making, and
Wow.
because of that, a workbook has been birthed from it. So it goes along with the book, and it's basically the 8 steps to a life of abundance.
Mm.
And so these two will be offered on Amazon, and there's also going to be a link to where they can personally purchase from me if they want a personalized autograph. So we'll
Oh,
know more
Okay.
in about a couple of weeks.
okay, that's awesome. So, if anybody wants to get her book, if you're not friends with her, then y'all may want to become her friend so you can get that information when she posts it on her Facebook, because I'm sure she's gonna
Yeah.
post it on there of
Yeah.
where the book is going to be available. And so,
Yeah.
Dr. Ronka, we so appreciate you. We thank you for
Yes,
coming on here
yes,
tonight. It was an honor to have you, especially to share your story. And
yes,
we want to encourage you to keep talking, keep sharing, because you just never know who may need to be healed and who may
yes,
need to
Yes.
take a step forward. Because
Yes.
when we hold on to our story, we got to realize that we're also holding on to somebody else's healing and liberation.
That's
that's
right.
good.
So we have to keep sharing. Just keep
Yes,
That's
talking,
right.
however the way the Lord give it to you, because it is for you, and he, of course, He's gonna always get the glory out of it.
That's
But
right.
the thing about it is that I see a lot of ladies that's gonna be healed and liberated through you because of your story, just like the other lady who shared her story with
That's
you.
right.
yeah,
You know
That's
what I'm
right.
saying? It's gonna happen for other people as well.
That's right.
So,
that's good.
And I encourage them to speak up and use their voice too. They may not feel like they're not ready, but I promise you, once it starts coming out of your mouth, that's when your healing starts. That's when it
amen.
starts. So yeah,
Amen.
when you speak, somebody else is gonna be blessed. And if we all continue to do that, we can, help a lot
Help
of
other
people.
people. That's right.
It's
That's
nothing to
right.
be ashamed about, no
Mm,
judgment. We've all been there. Had I spoken out before I did, I probably wouldn't have taken a 20 plus year journey in my mess. So
yeah, but
You
that's
know
all
what?
right though,
That's
because look
okay.
where it led you to.
that's
Thank
right.
you. That's
That's right.
okay.
Yeah,
Because some
My
people
pastor.
take longer, some people take shorter. It don't
that's
matter.
right.
Right.
God don't look at time. You know
It's
that.
your journey.
Right.
It's
Right.
Thank
your
you.
Right.
journey.
You
And
know
you know
God
what?
ain't
I
like
don't I
our
don't
time.
regret it. I don't regret it. Whatever
Yeah.
time has passed, I don't regret it because I know he will
Mm.
give me back double.
Woo,
Yes,
say
Lord.
that.
Praise Jesus for
Yes,
that.
he will. Mm.
Thank you, Lord.
Yeah.
So, everybody out there in the audience, we appreciate you jumping on and being with us on
Yes,
tonight. And I hope you all have enjoyed Dr. Veronica just as well as we did. And y'all make sure y'all come on back next Sunday, because we will have another guest as well sharing her story that she went through, because she's also a survivor of
yes.
domestic violence. So, y'all have a wonderful week and a wonderful night, and we will see you all again. Bye
Thank you, Miss
bye.
Good
Tyra, Miss
night.
Felicia. Thank you so
Good
much.
night, Dr.
You
Veronica.